Hello, folks. I'm running solo, as I said earlier. So, today, I got a very special guest. Welcome to episode 41, first of all. And, it's quite an honor to have someone who pretty much started the game for us. That a lot of us podcasters kind of like heard of this other podcast. I'm going to mention it right now. We kind of, it was a journey. It's one of those things where it's like, it's interesting to talk to someone who was there before you. It's kind of like talking to a war veteran or something, But today on the show, we have singer, songwriter, and also used to be a podcaster, Sam Swanson. How you doing, Sam?
Hey, how's it going, Chuck?
Doing good, man. We're just waking up here in the early mornings. I'm here in Southern California. I believe you're across the country. How's it doing over there?
Yeah, I'm on the other side. I'm on the other side. I'm East Coast over here.
Oh, all right. So. You affected by that hurricane at all?
No. That's
further south.
I'm upstate. I'm like I guess proper terms. See, like I'm from Chicago originally.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm just, I don't know, I'm like a sojourner. I don't really like identify with like location, but I'm where I'm at right now. So, but yeah, I guess I'm saying it wrong. I'm like central New York, which is technically not upstate New York. I'm like smack dab in the middle of New York State.
Okay.
So,
all right, that's cool.
So I'm not affected by any hurricanes or anything.
Indeed.
But I call it East Coast because that's just my Chicago lingo, which is ignorant. Just ignorance. So
that's funny.
Don't pay attention to me. This is a great way to start off.
Right.
My credibility here. So.
Yeah, we say that all the time. No big deal. We say that to ourselves, But no. So for people who might not know, Sam, you have a couple of bands that you play in, and you also used to be, a fellow podcaster. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Well, what's going on with that?
Yeah, I guess we'll start with the podcast since we'll go chronological. Yeah, sorry, just stretching.
You're good.
So, yeah, I used to have a podcast with a friend of mine. Actually, it's funny you say like veteran or whatever, because I view what we were doing. I feel like we were just copying Future Quake. You know what I mean? We were just copying.
Aren't we all? Yeah.
We were just. Yeah, like Future Quake and Canary Cry had been going for a solid year before we had, started our podcast. So
right.
Then I felt like we pretty much kind of like ripped off both those podcasts.
Nice.
But kind of did our own thing with it. But no, it's funny because in the realm of podcasting, I guess I didn't realize that like podcasting wasn't as big at the time. Like people weren't doing it like they're doing it today, and I everybody's into podcasts now. It's crazy, and it's
yeah. There's even memes about it, like oh yeah, I have a podcast, and I'm like, no, don't make fun of podcasts.
Yeah. So, but it's just funny because all my friends, it doesn't matter what kind of podcast. I mean, there's something for everything now, and it's just like, whoa. It's like, man, I feel like it's like kind of the story of my life with music too. Like if I feel like I'm a lot of times I'm doing something at the time when a lot of people are kind of like starting to like jump on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and,
no. I think I heard one of your episodes.
I tend to jump off of things before they get big.
Yeah, you're like
that's like my
If you ever start something else and you feel like you want to quit on it, just don't, because maybe you're just like you're gonna be the pioneer, bro.
Well, that's kind of like my new thing with what I'm doing, but we'll get to that. But yeah, basically I was in this podcast with a homie, and we kind of like went through this, I guess, I don't know, as people would call it back then, a paradigm shift of your reality of the way things are and the way you've been taught history and the way you are trying to reconfigure that in your brain. And it's a very psychological state that we were in, and but we started that from a Christian kind of like faith of trying to unpack that, and the podcast was called God's Property Radio, and through that, I met a lot of people like Gons and Basil and Josh Peck and
Wait. You've seen the Basil's face, the real face?
I have a picture. I got a picture with Basil. He's covering his face in the picture, but I got it. Yeah, I got a picture.
He's been doing that forever. He just recently went to Burning Man. He has a beard on with glasses.
Hey, you know what? I'm not gonna tell you his real name. What?
You know his real name? Oh my gosh.
What? Yeah, I know his. Yeah. But anyway, no. But yeah. So we did that podcast, God's Property Radio, for a solid year, and it was really cool to watch it grow. And we felt like we didn't know where it was going to go, but we ended up interviewing Chris White, who, in my humble opinion, is the greatest of all of the research out there. I just think.
Go ahead.
If there's somebody that I want to go have coffee with, it's going to be Chris White.
We made a T-shirt with his face, and it's kind of covering his eyes, and the band on his eyes says "Debunkalicious." And
yeah, dude, he's just the best.
Yeah, dude. We reached out to him, but he was already out of the podcasting realm. He was too busy for, he was doing his stepping out of the world of the internet. But yeah, that's pretty cool. You interviewed Chris White. That's really cool.
It's funny, and I'll get to that too, because I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of these people in person and talking with them and interviewing them, and he was one that I was trying to meet up with, and I didn't get to do that, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
So anyway, Chris White, we had him on an episode, and this isn't like something I mention a lot, but so I think I'm trying to go back here. We did an episode with Chris White on sleep paralysis. And during that episode, this is kind of a cool and trippy thing. Like, I'm going to list off a few things that kind of happened. It was like a very special time. But he went on because sorry, you know what? Let me rewind.
All right.
Before we interviewed Chris, before we had Chris on, we did an episode with Russ Dizdar on just like the whole. We did like a 3+ hour interview with Russ Dizdar. It was crazy.
All the big names right there, yeah.
And it's at the time, like, and this is kind of trippy, but at the time I was married, and my now ex, but at the time she. I was doing these late night podcasting stuff, and I'd come to bed, late. And so I went to bed, and she asked me, "Hey, who did you talk to? What was it about?" And I was like, it was about, just like demonic, like attachment, spiritual warfare, like
no biggie.
Lighthearted, like conversation that you're having, like
right before bed.
Yeah, well, I mean, she was already sleeping. I mean, it was probably like 1 a.m. or something when I got to bed.
That's funny.
But she's like asking me. I was like, all right, well, I'll tell her, And she was just like, yeah, I don't believe in that. And I was like, okay. Well, I said, I understand your position, honey. Like, I get it. Like, I didn't at one time believe in it either. So, to each their own. I'm not going to whatever. But Here's the trippy thing, my friend. And I think I mentioned this years ago when I was doing podcasting on the podcast. But after that interview that night, literally that night, my ex got sleep paralysis.
Ooh.
Like literally after having that conversation with me.
Mm-hmm.
It was just some very, very weird, serendipitous kind of stuff.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced it yourself?
No, I haven't.
I
have not.
I used to get it a lot, and it was scary. I mean, if you might not know a little bit about our story, but before we were Christian, we were dabbling in witchcraft and the occult and things like that, and my family was, so it got pretty supernatural at my household, and things were moving around the house, by itself. Things would move my bed, figures standing over me, complete paralysis. I would see probably like a group of figures standing over me, like holding me, you know what I mean? And it was just, It was pretty trippy, man. And I don't know. I've seen
crazy.
some.
I've never.
Really, you've never experienced it?
Never, ever. No. I mean, and when she went through it for like weeks,
Wow.
and so we ended up getting Chris White to come on our podcast, and like she was a part of that interview.
Oh, snap.
And that was very like therapeutic for her at the moment,
Right.
So the point of my story is it was kind of like this. Wow, we had him on, and then he, after the interview, asked us to be a part of Revelation Radio Network, and that was like, I mean, if you're in that community, if you know what I'm talking about, that was like, dude, like we're part of RRN,
right, right. That is a win.
Like you got signed to a record label, or something like that,
Yeah, no, for reals, it is. That's our next step. That's Fire Theft's next step. We're trying to get signed.
Oh snap! Yeah, man, get signed, buddy. No, but it was like our listenership like ramped up like, I don't know, 1,000%. I don't know. Like it was just crazy. It was just unreal. So that was a trip. And then somebody else that we were like kind of involved with, we weren't involved with originally, but another person that kind of like spawned like a lot of our viewpoints on things and helped strengthen our like kind of our faith of our podcast and stuff was Kent Hovind, on like evolution and eugenics and just different topics. And it was just found him to be fascinating, especially my interest in like the legal realm, which is a whole nother rabbit trail that we won't talk about right now because that's one of my favorites. So ended up like full circle by the end of the podcast after 2 years, had created an entire campaign for him, all full circle through meeting like people in the community and whatnot, and like doing conversations with Kent Hovind from prison, and just he ended up getting out of prison, and we interviewed him as like a free man as like our last episode, and it was just like a wild ride, and it felt like at the right moment. Again, it just felt like sometimes you don't know why people like leave things, like at that moment, when things are going. It's like that would have been a great moment to just keep going and just getting bigger, But I just felt a serious pull, like spiritually, to like do something else, and I didn't know what was coming from a very like personal angle on my family tip and everything. Like definitely some things were coming and I didn't know. Right. And so that all being said, we kind of hung that up. And I started an arts-based podcast called Hallelujah Praisecast that I broadcast through God's Property Radio. Right. And then I took on a few friends' podcasts at the same time, like the band Dissident Prophet from UK. Andy Jennings and his wife Mel, they had a podcast that they broadcast through God's Property Radio. For a while, Omega Frequency was pretty much taking the lead because BDK was doing that through God's Property Radio. And then I think Issa, the End Times Mama, had like a little podcast that she might have done 1 episode or 2 episodes on. But so I kind of was trying to start my own little network within a network and let other people do all the stuff that I used to do. Right. And then, at the same time, I was working on writing a record with this project that Gons was involved with me called Slave to Servant. And so I was writing a record, I was doing arts-based podcasting, and then basically my marriage completely fell apart. And that's kind of like the next chapter that nobody got. Right. And that's where we're at. Yeah. That's like the last 3 years.
Now, in between there, since I want to mention, we have another connection between us, and I don't know if you might want to talk about this just because he's very big on our show. Yeah. But you ended up bumping into Mike Davis's work,
Oh, yeah. I'll talk about that. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes.
Continue.
It's a perfect segue, actually, because Basil's Joyspiracy theory. He started Joyspiracy at the exact same time I started Hallelujah, and I think we both were each other's first guests or second guests. I can't remember on each other's shows. so he had that summer, he had Mike Davis on literally like weeks like before and after like my marriage just started to like hit the fan.
Right.
And I was panicking. I was going through just all kinds of stuff. I mean, for anybody that's been through that, like, I'm from like an intact Christian value family.
Right.
My parents are still together. So for me, like, honestly, dude, like, I never envisioned that as even a possibility of like being a divorced single dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah, it just really wasn't like an option to me.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's funny because people talk about, the worst like fears that they have. Like that was never a fear for me, but it became like my worst fear reality, like if you will, like in real time. Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's like, oh my gosh, no, like, am I living in a nightmare? Like,
yeah,
that's
what
what
I was about to say.
like,
It's like you're not even expecting to be in this nightmare, but it's happening. Like no matter what, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I think like, so basically, like Mike Davis, his thing on emotional intelligence, I had started doing I was trying to save my marriage, and I found a amazing resource. If anybody is ever going through, I'm gonna give them a shout out. They're called marriagehelper.com, which sounds like maybe corny or basic, but
yeah, it does.
But Dr. Joe Beam is probably one of the greatest. Oh my gosh, he's already teaching what Mike Davis is teaching too, but just in like a different realm.
Oh, I
and
see.
I'm sure that it was amazing to see. Like in that, I took a course, and it ultimately is just about you. It's about bettering yourself. You know what I mean? And becoming the most attractive human being that you can become. Emotionally, spiritually, physically, intellectually.
Right.
And so I did that course, and then during that course they said, hey, if there's areas that you're finding yourself like that you're like slouching in, that you feel like you need extra strengthening, go get like extra expertise or help, or invest in yourself too. Like put money into something that is going to help you. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to hit Mike Davis up. So I bought Mike's first book online, his Sanctified Emotions book. And I messaged him, and he had a conversation with me. This is a solid, I don't know, like we're nearing 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Like pretty much it will be 3 years soon. But he had a conversation with me, and I've never felt the way I felt talking to anybody, the way I felt with him, the way that he did mindfulness. And I don't, mean that in like a new agey weird way. I just mean like, it was phenomenal. And he is just an amazing human being. And he helped me with like the next step of what I was going through.
Right.
And furthered me. And I think with the combination of both those things, without those resources, I wouldn't be who I am today and where I am today, and have the positive outlook of what I have today. And I honestly, like, I feel like I don't mean to sound like selfish or whatever, but I feel like the world in some ways is my oyster. Like, like God made me to do things, and I'm about to unleash a ton of things. And that doesn't mean that I'm somebody crazy special, or that it's all about me. I just mean like I'm about to do some really big things that he's allowing me to do, and I'm stoked on it.
You heard it here, folks, at Fire Theft Radio first. I said that all backwards.
And I just want to say that, like, thank you to Mike, and thank you to Marriage Helper, like, for doing that. I mean, so yeah, that's where, I guess we have that Mike Davis connection. And I still talk to Mike. Mike posts these live videos, like, just like go on the Mike Davis Facebook page.
Oh yeah,
and
folks, if you don't know,
you click.
Yeah, if you don't know, click.
Anything you click on, he's like my Yoda, like he's he's just amazing. And also, I've been really delving into his sermons lately from the Oasis. Like, oh my goodness,
Right.
it is
Very good.
just unpacking like the actual context of what you believe is really important. And but yeah, that's the short end of, I guess, leaving off with the podcast. And I don't know. I feel like we can. Why don't you ask me some questions and we can direct this storm?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
no, it's
I'm
not,
basically leaving off like from leaving podcast to starting what I'm doing now, and whatever, we'll figure out that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
for sure. Well, first of all, I want to mention, I don't know if you knew, like, I was on also Basil's show on Joy Spiracy,
yes,
I don't know if you heard the story, but like actually, when I met Mike Davis, I couldn't stand the guy. You know what I mean? And
really,
yeah, and it's because of where I was emotionally, not because of anything he was. I mean, he was just this most joyful person ever. And
right.
and I met him at we went to a Heiser event in
Yeah,
Sun.
with Gons hosted that one,
Right,
right?
Gons and Basil were there, and I was gonna say this earlier. Like, I think I'm one of the few that have seen most of Basil's face. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm right there with you. I've seen it.
Yeah, yeah, because
So
he just had a hat on, and then he was just walking around, and he had like some sunglasses for a little bit. But I actually got to see him. I'm like, and I always make fun of them. Like, I'm one of the few that's seen that real face of his. You know what I mean? But so I was there, and
yeah,
we were listening to the event, and it was if you haven't heard it, folks, you can hear more about this in at Joy Spiracy Theory. But like he was there, and if you know Mike, like if you hear some of his work, he says jokes, but it's incredibly dry humor. It's like a dad joke all the time. It's like super, like, just dry humor. You know what I mean? Even the punchlines just come out real dry, and I'm not making fun of him. It's just funny. It's funny to me. But every like
hmm
little joke that he was saying, like, Mike was just busting out laughing, like the loudest man there. He was like so loud, he was so joyful, and everyone there, I'm not even kidding you, most of the people there kind of were serious or embarrassed, or some of them, we
yeah, yeah.
were just kind of a little bit weird or off. You know what I mean? This kind of podcast or crowd sometimes has a little bit of interesting people, interesting folks, and you could
You a
just
little
tell.
uptight? Is that what you're saying? A little uptight?
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm?
a little, yeah, for sure, to say the least. But so he was just laughing, and he sat next to me, right, and I didn't know who he was, and I was like, man, this guy is incredibly annoying. Like, I was so mad that this guy was laughing at every joke and just being super joyful. Really, I was mad at his joy, basically, which tells you where I was emotionally, um, and
Yeah. Sorry to laugh.
no,
Yeah.
it is hilarious now to me, but looking back, I mean, primarily the reason, and I don't know if you experienced this, but like once you start like doing the research of like the New World Order, the occult,
Yeah.
Hollywood, the music, the arts, everything infiltrated by evil, and all that stuff. I mean, for many people, it just puts this weight on you, like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like, there's so much, and the rabbit holes go so deep where you're just like really amazed of the amount of darkness that surrounds you, and I was oblivious to it the whole time. So I kind of had this just bitterness inside of me, and on top of that, I also
Yeah.
had mentioned I was like in a cult, and what I perceived Christianity to be was completely something else. When I started learning about ancient Near Eastern context, when I started reading the Heiser books and things like that, I was like, man, like everything I know, everything that I identify as, my identity as a whole is a complete fabrication. It's a lie. It's not, it's nothing is real, And so it was like,
Sure.
that's where I was, So I was super bitter about everything, And so I didn't even know that I had kind of like through another person many years before had I had like a good close friend of mine who used to go to Mike Davis's old church that he was an associate pastor at, And
Mm-hmm.
my friend would mention his services, and I would make fun of Mike Davis's services before I even met the guy. You know what I mean? And I'd be like, "Those sound stupid. Those sound like, you know, you don't learn anything." Those are because I was in this other Christian cult where it's like, if what we preach here is the truth and nothing else is true outside of this church, you know.
A little bit Gnostic.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But so we went there, and I mean, so I was going there, and you know, for many years I was like in some way or another bumping into Mike until I finally met the guy, right? And finally, like through Facebook, I was messaging my friend, and I saw right there, he was friends with Mike. Like, it tells you who he's friends with, you know. And I was like, dude, that's that joyful guy, you know what I mean? And then like I clicked on.
What a great way to be, like, side note, what a great way to be like set apart though for him. Like
sure.
that you're speaking the joyful guy.
Yeah, no,
know?
for real,
like,
because he was literally the light, and I don't think he even noticed, but like
he was the fruit of the spirit, man. He was the total fruit of the spirit.
Yeah, he was amongst all of the people there. I mean, it was just like so much joy from this person, you know? And so that's how kind of we connected, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I've been bumping into this guy for so long, and I didn't even know who he was. And I remember I told him, because I told him in person, and I was like, I remember I disliked you before I even met you, you know? and I was already talking crap about your services, and I didn't even know who you were, you know? And then so all of that, but I mean, that being said, I don't feel that way at all anymore, you know? I'm way past that.
Yeah.
Not even towards him, but towards my emotional state. Like, all of that has changed because of Mike Davis's work of finding emotional intelligence, and most importantly, finding emotional intelligence within the Bible, which I always thought that was not a thing, you know.
Right.
Mean, so if you guys really are struggling with some emotions and how to deal with yourself, or you don't know what's going on, I think one of the most important things he's ever mentioned to me, that people can get to a state where they can't even feel anymore. Like, if you ask them, "Oh, how do you feel?" They're like, "I'm okay," you know. That's like their automatic response, you know. But okay isn't a feeling, you know. And you get to a point where a lot of Christians that I've met personally, I can say this from personal experience, suppress their emotions, and they don't deal with them, you know. And so because they're going through so many things, they don't know how to deal with it, and they end up suppressing it, and they end up not knowing how they feel. They go numb. When you ask them these questions, and they're just like on autopilot with all this emotional baggage behind them, and they don't know how to deal with it, and it becomes something that spills out into your marriage, into everything, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's like, it's emotional warfare, you know, it's spiritual warfare in the emotional sense, you know, and
did you
they're interconnected.
Anything like that when you started finding out about the New World Order and all this stuff like that?
Are you talking about like metaphysical stuff? Like, are you talking about like like what you were talking about?
Yeah. Well, did you? Yeah.
No.
No,
I never. You know what I experienced, and I don't know. So this is just a theory, okay?
Okay.
This is just my perception, and I could be wrong, and I have a lot of things that I wish Mike Davis was here right now.
Let me call him real quick.
Could have a good conversation. Yeah. No. So okay. I think that God. This is just my outlook from what I've experienced. So this is not gospel. But I think that God kind of speaks to us the way that we need to be speak to. And we all have certain ways, like a metaphysical thing or whatever was going on, or he let that happen, right? Like maybe he didn't directly like do that or whatever, however you want to argue that point. But that got your attention. Right. Some people have dreams, you know, and they're like, "Oh, I had this dream about blah blah blah," and it makes them move. It gets movement out of them. So me, neither of those two things. But here's what I get in life: I get a ton of serendipitous coincidences. Like, it is just uncanny, like the things that connect and interweave. And I think also like my personality type, like psychologically, like I see connections in things like all the time, like
Right.
in ways that other people don't. So I think that's the way that God kind of like uses that, if like for me. And that's what happened with the podcast, with the paradigm shift, with all that kind of stuff, like, and continually still even more. I get like I went through a while where I didn't get like deja vu and stuff, and I still don't get it like I used to. But deja vu used to be a big staple in my life.
Yeah, I
And
used to get it a
stuff
lot.
like that. And I feel like those are really interesting and fascinating psychological things that I would love to talk to like Mike Heiser about, or like Russ Dizdar, or like Mike Davis, or any of these people. Get them all together, just do a big Q&A session on all these. You know, here's another question I have, which is kind of in the same realm, but it's sort of different. Is this: I have an amazing memory. Like I remember stuff as like I still remember stuff when I was under the age of 2.
Oh
Like I still have
gosh.
like memories of like my old house in like Fargo, North Dakota. You know, like
Wow.
it's crazy. I mean, I moved when I was 2. I still remember what it looks like. I still remember my cat. I still remember, and I remember things situationally very well.
Mm.
And so I could still like, however people have like a photographic memory, like I'm not gonna say I wouldn't go that far, but I almost have like like, you know how they talk about like trauma-based mind control and you know all that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
I wonder if, emotionally, if emotional states can control your mind or control your memory, or even skip memories, right? Or like suppress memories.
Right.
What's the opposite like end of that
Mm.
spectrum? Like, because for me, I remember what you said, what we were doing, like all the time, and I think it's because I'm more of an emotional dude, like
Mm-hmm.
compared to most dudes. Like I fall more on the E spec, or the like, if you follow like the Myers-Briggs, which again I'm not saying that that's gospel, but
Right.
it's pretty fascinating stuff. Is that like I lean toward like E versus, or not E, sorry, uh E, what is it? Yeah, E, right? No, that's E is extrovert. F
Mm.
versus T, right? So like I'm I'm probably more balanced than I've ever been in my entire life, but I
Mm-hmm.
definitely still lean on the F side. Like I'm super in touch with my emotions. Like,
Oh yeah.
and I think that there's something about that, and in regard to memory. And I don't know what it is, but I would love to have that conversation with Mike Davis.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because
I never really thought that through completely. Like I know what you're saying because I've had similar thoughts, but to think of the opposite spectrum of that would be like that's crazy. Yeah, I've never thought of that. I mean, just
yeah.
like a
Yeah,
limitless
let's do it, man.
situation, you know?
Call him up. Let's do it. No,
I'm just so down.
just
I'm so
kidding.
no. He's always down. I always tell him like, hey man,
Uh,
I even told him. He even said for reals. Like I told him like, all right, Mike, got you on my phone. Whenever I have a crazy idea or whatever, and I want to talk about it biblically, I'm gonna call you up, okay? And then he's like, yeah, man, anytime. So I think I told
say
you,
you
right? I think I told you he lives like
talk.
2 miles from me. You know?
Yeah, well, so, but to tie this back in what you originally asked, so no, I didn't get what you got, but
Uh
I
huh.
got a lot of that kind of stuff, like the serendipitous, coincidental, just crazy stuff that way.
Yeah.
Um, Even more, it ramped up. But yeah, that's back then. So where do you want to go now?
No, I mean, like I said, is we're not really like I said before the show. I mean, we're like we're just having conversation here. You know, it doesn't really. It's not. There's no trajectory. We just want to kind of open things up
Okay, well,
and maybe
then
maybe in your
I'll pick it up.
past, you haven't mentioned something that you have always wanted to mention. Maybe some new thoughts or whatever. We can share those as well. You know, but one thing I wanted to ask you before we
Yeah.
get into something else is, in your experience. I mean, in all of your spiritual experiences, like with God and everything, what can you say? Like, have you ever had like a dark spiritual experience? You know, like anything
Uh,
like sleep paralysis or anything weird like that? Like,
Man, you know what? The only thing that I've had, man, that I mean, because you're defining like more metaphysical.
right?
I would say, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because the only thing that I've had is physical,
Yeah.
in the sense in the sense of the darkest time of my life
Mm.
was was going through a separation and the eventual divorce of
Right.
my
Right. Right.
situation. And then uh
Which as believers, we understand that a lot of that stuff, there's a spiritual aspect to it as well, right? But like.
well, it's funny because I'm not an anxious person at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I got mad anxiety for a solid year. And I actually couldn't. I would wake up and I just couldn't go back to sleep. My heart was racing. I started working out to actually just kind of like quell some of that,
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, that was the darkest time. Was I think your emotions. I think learning to control my emotional state and actually, I think here's another thing is grief. Grief is a very important thing to get over and to deal with. And grief does, you can grieve the dead, but you can also grieve the living. And I grieved the living for
Mm.
a solid 2 years of my life. And I still, even though I'm not grieving the loss of my that situation anymore, I still kind of sometimes grieve, just for my kids, because they have to go back and forth.
Right.
They have all these changes that were forced upon them that they didn't ask for.
Right.
And I think they're doing quite well. But because I'm hypersensitive, being somebody that's still from an intact family, I constantly am like have to kind of keep myself in check and not worry too much about them, because
Mm.
I'm not like some of my friends are like, oh, they're fine, they're kids, they're resilient. Like, not me. Like, I'm like, dude, like, how is this affecting their emotional well-being, and how is this
Oh
how
no,
do I not
it really does.
dude, between from man to man, like, I haven't even gone on a date yet. You know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
I haven't even like started dating. Like, I have friends that are making all kinds of choices, and that's their prerogative. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to discern for myself, what I'm supposed to do. I'm
Right.
not responsible for anybody but me.
Mm-hmm.
And that being said, like, I'm very in touch with my children. I'm not going to just bring somebody into their life that's going to leave, or that's not going to be more importantly, and again, like, this is all part of the package. God gave me these kids to be their guardian and watch over them and do the best possible job that I could to bring them up in this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's first and foremost my number one responsibility in life right now, and it will be for quite some time. That being said, God is going to have to make it be known that that woman that comes into my life is the right one for me and them. That's like winning the lottery, or something. That's like at a slot machine or something, where you have to get all three things to line up. Like, this is a multi-situational, like, dimensional thing, and I believe that I've just learned to be very slow and patient to
Mm-hmm.
this process, because I'm realizing things about it all every day. Like,
And
just wow.
I think you would
You
say,
know,
uh, I think I'm pretty sure you would agree with me that emotional intelligence has not only helped you deal with, the breakup, but also helped you with being single and growing yourself so you could be a better father, a better, a
yeah.
better everything that you do. I mean, it's because that's, I don't think people understand sometimes the concept or the importance of working on yourself. You know what I mean? Because they think sometimes, like, oh
Right.
yeah, that just means I'm gonna be better in some way or another. But like, think of all the things that could be experienced or done with our hands, with our minds. With what we can experience as humans, right?
Hmm.
Your job, your relationships of any sort. So a brother, a father, a mother, a friend, a sister, whatever it is that you are, whatever kind of relationship that can be experienced. You're a craftsman, all these different things can be affected by your emotional state, like everything,
Do you ever do you ever think about this? Like, I think about it all the time. Is today I'm not who I was a year ago, right?
Right.
Or even 6 months ago. And like, I'm still growing and figuring it all out. Like, I don't have the answers for anybody that's listening. I don't have any answers. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I mean, I'm a mess. I'm a mess. We're all a mess. You know,
Right.
we're all in like a fallen state, right? A humanity is like we can say we have the answers, but I mean, I don't believe we can all help each other. That's for sure. But like, none of us has all of them. And that being said, like with I just don't see I see myself like in a year from now, 2 years from now, the person that I'm going to be is just the man I'm going to be is so different.
Right.
And so, and I don't want to like put myself in bondage or somebody else in bondage, like another woman in bondage that's not going to be on the same page in 2 years. You know what I mean? And so that's got to be like a very, very like clear cut, like God will make it known. You know what I mean? Like I just, that's just something I'm really serious about. And I've become very much at peace with dating myself, if I can call it that.
Right. No. And
it
another fun fact of myself, I think, is it took me about 6 years, probably close to 7, to go on a date after I broke up with my daughter's mother, you know? And that whole time was a process of growth, of understanding myself, of growing with God. During that time, I bumped into the work of Mike Davis. I bumped into the work of Heiser, and all of that because I was listening to different podcasts like, Canary Cry and different things like that. And I mean, I was just going through a change in every aspect of my life, So I had the same decision where I was like, I don't want to date anybody right now. Like, I really don't. Like, nothing. Like, not, and obviously not even messing around. Like, nothing. Like, it was like 100%.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Just like.
That's amazing. Hey, I applaud you, man. As man to man, like that's what's up. And like, not a lot of us are out there that are doing that. And I'm not saying that we're the greatest thing ever, but that's called self-control and self-discipline. And like, there's not a lot of that in this world. You know what I mean?
No, it's, more than ever, it's becoming very hedonistic, but, so as this time is going,
it's easy to cling to pleasure to avoid the pain.
Yeah, indeed. And I think that's what most of us do in some way or another, whether it's through, obviously drugs, but I think people sometimes don't realize that we do that to ourselves psychologically with very basic things like our jobs, like maybe some sport that we like to do, a hobby. Sometimes hobbies become obsessions because they're really just a band-aid to cover something else, and it's just one of those things. But
balance.
Indeed. So as I remember 6 years, 7 years into it, I was like, okay, I'll start dating, and even then, I mean, I was like dating a little bit, and I would break it off immediately, like I can, the mentality that you had right now that you explained is what I was having. Like, look, I have a trajectory, and I can see where it's going. I don't know what it's going to look like exactly, but I know that the trajectory is growth, And
you don't want to throw God's ride. You know what I mean? You don't want to hinder whatever His plan is for you either.
Right? Yeah, because I think if you definitely don't want to over plan it, you just kind of, like you said, you're along for the ride, and you just kind of, as you go, submit to God's will, and it's going to be a better place, whether you know what it looks like or not. I think that's where faith definitely steps in, and you're like, wherever it is I'm going, it's much better than where I'm at right now, and
Absolutely.
And so I've dropped many relationships for the same thing, where there weren't even relationships really. I just would start dating, and just listening to them having a conversation with them would kind of tell me, like, okay, I don't like what I'm hearing. Like, this is just bad. Like, there's no, you can tell with a person within a few most of the time within the first conversations, how deep they can think and what their trajectory is in life. You know what I mean? And so if I wasn't, Go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
And if it wasn't where, if it wasn't moving, then I was like, you know what? This is it. This is done, right? And I've always been doing that, and even to this day, like right now, currently again, single again. I mean, I was in a decently long relationship, and it was my first like actual relationship in 7-8 years, like in a long time. But it's the same thing where I felt like, look, I still am continuing to grow. I'm still in continuing, and I have a lot of things I need to work on still. And I didn't feel that same thing or that same mindset. So I took a very difficult decision, despite the fact that this person was amazing and this person was great with my daughter even, it was like a difficult thing because it was like, oh man, like this is where I need to go. And so that can only happen really if you can really figure yourself out, like figure out what you're feeling, and then really just say, okay, what do I do with this, But that's the problem, that most of us don't even know what we're feeling about it. We're just kind of like running blind,
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Well, and you said like you don't know what you're feeling. I think I always knew what I was feeling. I was the opposite, but I didn't know I didn't know I could control it. I didn't know how to direct what I was feeling. Like I would live every day like emotion to emotion, and like it's just whatever I'm feeling now, and I can't control it. And like
that's why you're an artist.
Yeah, bro. But now I got that business sense. Because I used to manage a campground. Now I got this like business sense about me. And I'm so organized, and I have spreadsheets, and I'm almost like religious about the way that I put in all of my info after every gig. You know what I'm saying? Because I work for myself.
I see.
And so again, like Mike Davis, man, mad helpful on emotional and business. Like I was. So I guess I'll pick up kind of where we left off.
Okay.
Which is, and if anybody used to listen to God's Property Radio, or whatever. I did a 4-hour testimony like on God's Property Radio, which was really in depth, and that's like a different me. Like at the same time, it is who I was, but those perceptions, like this is me now. You know what I mean? This is a different person that you're listening to. And I also did a testimony on the Joyspiracy that was a little less long, that you can always reference. But so where I'm at now is like when I was going through that separation, I moved in. This is the crazy thing, like another serendipitous thing. I was always into like underground music, like punk and ska and indie rock and hip hop, just all kinds of stuff. Like, being from Chicago, I was very blessed to like grow up in a scene that was crazy. Like I got to like play in the same scene as like bands like, Fall Out Boy and like Plain White Tees and Rise Against and all those bands. Like I was playing with like the Academy Is and bands that would go on to be in like members would go on to Panic at the Disco and just all kinds of. It was just crazy, like the scene. Like you didn't know it at the time. You just knew like, whoa, like this is like a very busy thing, and I'm a part of it. And like these people are rad, and we'd help each other out, and we were always fueling each other to like put out more art, and it was dope. But I spent like a solid 10 years making records, and in my past life, and I didn't have any sort of like business direction or anything. But one thing that I was into, going even further back in church when I was younger in high school, I was into like Tooth and Nail records, like all those bands and stuff, like MXPX and Goaty Hook, and like the choir leader at my church gave me a cassette. He would just give me cassettes like randomly, like to borrow, of like these underground bands. And one of the bands was this band called Poor Old Lou. And they were like one of like the third band signed to Tooth and Nail. And so now let's fast forward the serendipitous thing, right? So I'm fast forwarding now to like when I first moved to New York, which I started going to like this church, and I was always like, man, it'd be so dope to like meet some like ex-member of like a band like from Tooth and Nail or something, to play with or something out here, and maybe start something a little more spiritual, And so I remember talking to like my pastor of the church that I was a part of, back in 2011, 2012, whatever that was. And he knew some people, but nobody that was like signed or like, but he knew people that toured and stuff. And that was kind of cool. Then fast forward to my marriage falling apart. Literally, my marriage fell apart right when I met Jesse Sprinkle from Poor Old Lou. Like, the cassette that I had as a kid, like as a teenager, like, are you kidding me? Like, he came and camped at the campground that I managed right when everything hit the fan with my marriage.
Right.
And then fast forwarding past that, I started recording with him, and he let me live in his studio for 7 weeks while I figured out my life while we were separated.
Wow.
And it's just this crazy thing, you know what I mean? Like, I can't even tell you. And like other things that happened during that time period, this podcasting community, I'm going to say this disclaimer, like, I used to have a ton of friends who were like followers of the podcast or listeners.
Right.
I kind of went through a stage where I was just not into what they were all about.
Right.
And I kind of deleted almost everybody off of my Facebook account, except for a solid, like, maybe 20, 30 people.
Yeah.
And I think you're one of those people as well that I kept. But like, some of my friends most of them are podcasters or researchers. And one of them, Natalina, Natalie from Extraordinary Intelligence.
Right. Yeah.
Well, her now husband, Nathaniel Howdeshell, this is kind of a crazy thing. So again, during that whole period when, like, my ex, like, checked out of the marriage and, like, didn't want to do it anymore and all that, I was like grieving in a parking lot of Walmart, and Nathan texted me because he saw that I posted that I was going through something on Facebook and I needed prayer. And he texted me and he said, "Hey brother, I have no idea what you're going through." And here I am just crying, like sobbing in my car in a Walmart parking lot.
Eesh.
And he texts me.
I mean, I'm not making light of this, but the fact that you were in front of a Walmart is even more depressing.
Yeah, it's like lowest of the low, right? And so, so, you know what? Disclaimer: Walmart is a great place if you just want to be accepted for who you are right now. At least Walmart will do that. You know what I mean? That's just the truth, bare naked truth.
Oh gosh.
Anyways, so I was in the parking lot. He texts me. He's like, "Brother, I don't know what you're going through." He's like, "I'm praying for you, but if you need anything, if you need to even just get out of town, like, I will be happy to fly you out and come visit me or whatever." Wow. And so I took him up on that, which I couldn't believe that he would offer that. You know, that's like so generous. He used to play in this band called, well, actually he's still in this band called Gossip. And I think he used he had so many frequent flyer miles saved up from his band from traveling the world, you know, that he hooked me up with a little piece of that pie, which was like, just, I can't tell you how grateful I still am for that.
Right.
You know, and he flew me out for like just this time in the wilderness with him, you know, just on the farm. And so many things even happened while I was down there. And I just can't even tell you, man, like, it was just a spiritual experience being with a brother in the Lord that also could offer me, like, he's tasted and smelt and touched everything that there is to touch and smell and taste, you know, like he's lived the life. And so I look at him as not only an older brother, but like somebody that could be like, hey, you know, like, give me some serious advice, even as I'm getting back into music, you know what I mean?
Right.
So we recorded some stuff at his studio there when I was in Arkansas for that week that I was out, and we did this cover that I haven't released yet of a Sade song called Pearls, which just so happened to be the song that kind of like got me through the storm.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if there's any other Sade fans, but I'm a pretty big Sade fan, and the song she did called Pearls, and basically the lyrics are, there's a woman in Somalia scraping for pearls on the roadside, and talking about, like, wrapping it all up and being like, and it hurts like brand new shoes. Like, obviously this woman can't buy new shoes. Like, look at us in our American standard, like, way of living, and we think our life is so horrible, or, you know what I mean? And it hurts like brand new shoes. Like, it's so tongue in cheek, but it's like, that song brought me to a place where I had felt remorse for this woman in Somalia who is scraping for girls for her daughter, and you know what, my marriage is falling apart, my world is ending right now, but at the same time, like, somebody else has got it way, way damn worse.
Right,
you know
right,
I mean?
right. Yeah.
And so yeah, that was a big therapeutic thing, and I'll be putting that song out after the new year. So finally it'll see the light of day.
And
so with Mr. Jesse Sprinkle on drums too, which is dope. It's all kind of come full circle, this whole thing.
Nice.
All my brothers in the Lord and people that have just helped me along the way, like the things that I've experienced over the last 3 years, I can't even tell you, like, real time, like, just the blessings that people have been to me. And it's forced me into being what Mike Davis is calling a Zadik, in the Hebrew.
Right.
I feel like I'm understanding and wanting to be a more generous human being, and like anything I can do to help people, like I don't even care. Like if I'm going through Dunkin' Donuts, I'll just throw them $1. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, whatever. Thank you for the coffee.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever I can do. I don't know. I just feel like that's where I'm going right now in life. And there's big things that I want to do that I can't even really talk about on air, because I haven't like fully been able to develop them, but I'm working on those things right now. And
it's funny that you say the tip thing. Like it might seem a bit frivolous to some people, but like I've been thinking about exactly that. Like the little things. Like it's crazy that in today's time, 2019, we have to work towards that common courtesy again. Even just your regular, every day, open the door for somebody, help an old lady across the street, like little things like that we just don't do, like the idea of like chivalry dying, and in my opinion, a lot of this stuff also, the attack on masculinity, the and at the same time destroying the supposed toxic masculinity and then elevating, femininity on another level, has like inverted so many things where everyone's lost their place. Everyone's lost their place. Like,
are we going Dave Chappelle here, or what are we doing? I mean, like,
oh snap! But and it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was gonna bring that up earlier a little bit, but like because I heard.
Oh my gosh! No, hey, real quick, let's talk about Dave Chappelle. And let's talk about somebody else who I find on the same tip, like equally as inspiring, is Lauryn Hill.
Okay.
Miss Lauryn Hill, for those who are fans of the Fugees and just her solo work, I was a big fan of her. But another one of these things that kind of like came full circle for me was her MTV Unplugged double disc album. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No, I'm not. No.
Oh my gosh, man. You need to get familiar with that.
Okay. All right. Hold on, folks. I'll be right back. Let me get acquainted.
Yeah. All right. Yep. Pause. Little intermission. Little commercial break. Maybe you can get that record deal, your podcast or whatever. A little sponsorship here. So I was to add to the backstory of when I was going through all that stuff after the Arkansas trip, I took a road trip, and I was just I had to rediscovered in my CD collection Lauryn Hill's MTV Unplugged, which is, I feel like I could rant for hours about that. Ooh. Like literally just that album.
Okay.
But I went to visit Gons, and we laid down some tracks too in California. And then I went and got tattooed in Phoenix by my homie who used to live in Chicago.
You are a nomad all over the place, huh?
Sojourner, homie.
Yeah.
So that being said, like I listened to that with Gons, that Lauryn Hill record, because I was like, dude, hey, I just need you. I need your spidey sense. Like if there's anything here that rubs you the wrong way, that like in the spiel that she's talking about, please let me know. If it's like too new agey, let me know, because I need to know, because this is speaking to my soul right now. You know what I mean? So I made him listen to this.
It's always good to have a friend to bring you back just in case you might be going crazy, you know.
Got to have those people that you keep around you just to kind of keep you in check. You know what I mean? Make sure that, you know, do you hear anything that's like maybe a little contradictory to like our spiritual, like, you know, the way we're looking at things, you know? But yeah, I mean, he vouched for it too. And there's this interlude 5 on that disc. It's on disc 2. It's like the opening track to the second disc. So backstory on Lauryn Hill, because she basically did what Dave Chappelle did before Dave Chappelle did, which was she completely left the system. She completely, you want to talk about somebody who had success and fame, and I mean, Fuji's from to my knowledge, the Score is still like the #1 group hip hop album. Like for a hip hop group, it's the #1 selling charting album of hip hop. So that's an accomplishment in itself. Then they all went solo after the Score, and I mean, think about this, dude. Like the Score, like 1995, 6, whatever that was, 6. Right. Like they brought the Roots on tour. Like we're talking about like the group that paved the way for the Roots. Like, come on, you know, you think about the gravity of the Fugees and Lauryn Hill, and like she pretty much coined the term like neo soul, like D'Angelo, Erykah Badu, all that kind of stuff, like that came out of that. Right. Like, oh my gosh. Right. Anyway, sorry, dude. This is why don't get me started on music. So anyways, Erykah Badu, Lauryn Hill, basically like had massive success on her first solo record, and then when she was going back into the studio, she just wasn't feeling right. Like she felt like she was enslaved, like to this machine. Like she had created like this monster, and now she's got to feed everybody. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so what does she do, dude? Like this is like the most punk rock thing I've ever heard for like a soul singer. Is she goes to fulfill her contract with Columbia to be like, I'm done. Instead of going back to finish that studio record that she was working on, to go do a song and dance and get back on the radio, she does a live, unplugged record, acoustic and bass only with vocals. Like, ooh. And not, let's just fuel that fire for a second, okay? Like, let's realize this is in 2002. Like, come on. Yeah. Like, hold on. She took, not only did she do this unplugged, here's the thing. Yeah, okay, Lauren, play Killing Me Softly. Yeah, Lauren, okay, play That Thing. Okay, play X Factor. Play all your hits. Play the singles. No, not Lauren. Lauren did all brand new spiritual material from soul, right, on acoustic. Yeah. And then ranted spiritual rants about the system and about her spiritual awakening in between these songs. Wow. Giving praise to God. Wow. I got to check this out, man. If that is now, and I'm not saying I don't know Lauren. I mean, that was Lauren in 2002. Right. I don't know Lauren now, and I'm not here to judge anything. You know what I mean? Right. I'm not here to judge anybody. That's God's job, right? Right. So, I mean, I just I get out of the way, let God do the judging. I discern for myself. I go, okay, like this is for me. This isn't for me. God, obviously, thank you for bringing me to that realization. Right. But what I will say is, like, I think that 2002 disc is maybe the most powerful thing that any major label has released. To mine, to like, at least for me, I can't believe that she did that, and that it's still speaking to me, and that is like the sole thing that probably in a lot of ways is inspiring the record that I'm recording like right now. Right. As far as content and like her journey. But anyway, so that being said, so segue from Lauryn Hill into Dave Chappelle. What did Dave Chappelle do? He did the same dang thing. Yeah. You know, he had the Chappelle show. He had so much success. Like, these snakes are feeding off of him. Right. And he's like, peace. He does the block party. He pieces out. Right. And then he comes back and he does these, oh my goodness, man, these these stand-ups, how do you feel about this? Like,
Yeah.
let me hear your opinion. I want to hear your opinion on this.
Yeah, well, honestly, they've gotten progressively better, like the last three, right? And well, the first one has like
Yep.
two, and then the second one, and then like the third one that he just released last week, 2 weeks ago,
Yes.
I think was his best, in my opinion, because I think he's one of the few that can probably get away with attacking where culture is right now, not where it's going, where it's at, and he's like, nah, this is not a good place to be, and to be able to do that successfully, I mean, you got to have a ridiculous amount of talent, first of all, and to make it funny and still. I mean, I don't know if you. I mean, folks, if you haven't seen it, I mean, I don't. If you're a little sensitive to bad words and being crude, then probably not. But like, the reason I watch some of this stuff is because, in my opinion, like you see where culture is going and where it's at. You know, you see both of those things. You know, and you can also see with Dave Chappelle where it was. You know, and he kind of puts his stories together where you can see all three, like past, present, future kind of thing, you know? And he really makes you think with his jokes, like a lot. Like one of the jokes, I mean, when he started talking about abortion the way he did, I was like, man, like it's funny, but it's like at the same time, it makes you think, it made the people think, you know? And he even like reaching out to the crowd and saying, you guys are the worst people I've ever entertained, you know? And like,
telling, like the opening track.
Yeah, he was opening it that way, like you guys are the worst, like, you know, and it just goes off, and everybody's just like listening to it. I mean, it can really tell you that he's not afraid to stand in front of the monster that is our culture today, the PC culture, the feminist culture, you know, the third wave feminism and all that stuff, and just stand in front of it and say this is how I feel about it, you know, and
right,
and you can't even do that anymore, like to actually say, this is how I feel about it for reals. We all have to pretend to feel a certain way, you know? And
oh my gosh,
it's crazy.
And for the people that are offended about swearing or whatever, like I get that. I used to kind of be that way in some ways. So one time I interviewed for the what was the guy's name? I'm trying to remember his name. He was a researcher. It was about the Jesuits and stuff. He's on Canary Cry. I can't remember his name. I think I'm still friends with him, but the dude swears like a sailor, right? and he's like, I'm gonna try my best, man. I'm gonna try my best. And I was like, and he explained to me on the podcast like why he doesn't find swearing offensive. And I was still like of the other camp, but I appreciated that he had this other view.
Right.
But I have to say, man, for me, things have come full circle, and I don't find those kinds of words offensive. I don't swear at gigs. I personally choose not to use words because I don't want to offend other people.
Right.
But I'm not of that camp. I think they're just words, bro. You know what I mean? They're just, I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah. But all words are made up.
So yeah. It's just, I don't want to be imprisoned by that.
Right.
By a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But so Dave Chappelle though, oh my gosh, I just watched that last Saturday night, I think. And I could not, like, I got that same feeling that I got from that Lauryn Hill double disc. Like I was like, you're like, literally, Dave, like, thank you for this, because I'm in the midst of writing lyrics right now. Like I am recording 12 songs as we speak in the studio. Like it is just the greatest time to be watching this. Right. And I think it's important, like you've been saying, you've been throwing out some terms, you know, like, you know, feminists and all this stuff. I'm not of the feminist camp. I'm not of the chauvinist camp. I'm not of, I don't like any of these.
You're things. Not an ist of any form.
Dude, that's another thing. Hey, you know, let's talk about this for a second, because here's another change that I've been going through. Okay, ready? The lovely state of New York has just made vaccines, same as California where you're at. They just made vaccines mandatory if you want to put your kids in school. And so I am now a homeschooling dad this week. But I want to say this, and that's some personal information, and I could give out a ton more personal information about celebrities that don't vaccinate, and people that I respect, and people that I know that vaccinate that don't respect me. But if I listed off some names, you'd be like, oh, I respect them. You know what I mean? That being said, here's the thing. This is like a violation of human sanctity, like your body.
Right.
To be able to put that in. I think that God is using this in my life for a good reason. I think in another year or two, I will be traveling a lot more. And I think that I will be able to have the ability to bring my kids with me, and school them while I'm doing my thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's working out for me. Unfortunately, a lot of other people are I have some friends that just went, they're like, we have to go do this. We have to go vaccinate our kids. And they didn't want to, you know what I mean? But they don't have the option of homeschooling with what they're doing. I mean, this is the societal thing, you know? And it's very unfortunate that people assume that I'm anti-vaccine, and that even though I don't vaccinate, because where you got into saying you're an ist or you're a whatever.
Yeah.
This whole society wants to put you on one side of something.
Oh yeah, no, I get that all the time because and
that's
yeah.
That's the sentiment that I appreciate so much about Dave Chappelle's recent stand-up.
Right.
Because he didn't do it, and he offended everybody.
Right.
It was amazing.
Oh yeah.
He offended me. Like, I was like, dang, Dave. But then he came back around and offended the next person. It was like, oh, gee, you are just genius.
Yes.
That's what you are.
Indeed.
And God broke the mold with that guy.
No, I think so.
Like, when it comes to comedy, that guy is one of the greatest. And in some way, and I said this back in 2005 to some homies when I was on this bicycle tour in California. I was talking to one of the members of RX Bandits, and we were talking, and I'm like, dude, should not Dave Chappelle have a Nobel Peace Prize? Like, seriously.
Yeah.
But in today's culture, no way. You know what I mean?
And yeah.
I think it's ironic, but I think he should. That's my opinion. Yeah, so back to the point is, the main point is, don't let the society put you in the camp of, I am on this side, I am on this team, because they're going to they've already co-opted that team. You know what I mean?
Right.
And here's the thing. I don't vaccinate my children. I typically don't go to the hospital. I mean, if we get in like a car accident, I'm probably going to go to the hospital. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are things that you just are going to need the medical realm for. Okay. But that all being said, I think that you, as a human being, as a sovereign creation of God, the Most High himself, you deserve to make your own decision and and educate yourself and live with the consequences of your own choices. Like,
that is divine. That's what we're intended to do. You know.
Why would I want to take that away from you?
Yeah.
Like, even if I could see that that's leading to a bad place, there's a lot of things I don't agree with. I'm not going to go get on a soapbox and preach what I don't agree with. You know what I mean? That's not my job. Like, if somebody asks me, like, hey, like, do you think that maybe I'm making a bad decision? Like, yeah, I'm like, bro, don't get another bottle of alcohol today. Like, you know, like I don't, you know, like, I still love people who are struggling. Like, that's the other thing. It's like, I'm not above that. I'm struggling in different ways too, you know?
Right.
So
that's
like, who am I? Like,
dude,
but
you know,
I'm not anti-vaccine. I just choose not to vaccinate.
Right. No,
and once again, going.
Two things that I want before we get into this is, first is, you know, one of the things I started to do is I started to expose, you know, just how the current political left lies about a lot of things, right? And because I was doing that, they immediately said, well, you must be Republican. You must be, you know, on the right, you know? And I'm like, no, that's not my point here, you know?
Well, because you and I both know both sides are, you know, two wings of the same bird.
Right.
So,
and
I think
I think we just mentioned this.
The media.
I mentioned this, what, I think 2 or 3 episodes ago. No, I went on Canary Cry News Talk, and we talked about this. And you start following the money comes from the same people, from the right and the left. You know what I mean? So I mean, Soros' money is tied with with all these different things. So it's like okay, look, I'm not.
Hold on.
Yeah.
One second. Can I just interject for 1 second?
Sure.
So yes, you are right. In Soros, whoever, but let's go beyond that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact of the matter is that your information it's subcontracted through the wire networks.
Right.
Okay. Now the wire networks, there are 2. Are you ready? Reuters and Associated Press. Guess what? Reuters owns Associated Press.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not going to name the family that owns Reuters. Okay?
Because I think they know.
That's all I'm going to say.
I think we've named it before, but yeah, my point is yeah, my point is that, yeah, I mean, like, everybody like doesn't look further into who's behind, the networks and all that stuff, and it's like, come on, guys, like, this is all, as you said, it's the same coin, 2 different sides, you know what I mean? But it's the same coin, and it's like, all right. And so again, just me bringing things up, like, oh, so you're this, you're that. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, like, that's a lie. That's a lie. That's true. And when you step outside of any sort of system, you can, point out where there's faults in anything, because you're not in the system. You don't interpret things through your system. You know what I mean? And so, like, you just kind of have this ability. I think it's a God-given thing where you can, like you said, make a decision for yourself and be like, no, and just be an independent thinker instead of just belonging to this whole thing. I think that's what Dave Chappelle does the best.
The system doesn't like that, man. That bodes with the system. That bodes with the ideal, like, 2-party system and divide and conquer strategy. So
indeed. And so, like, I mean,
it's like you're kind of like Neo in the Matrix, dodging all those bullets. You know what I mean? It's like not to be cliche, but like I feel that way, like, constantly. I'm like, no, do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not anti. I'm here. All these bullets, those are just little bullets all around me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and that's another thing. Like, and another thing, even on our end, of the spectrum, of other truthers or woke people, as it's coined now, like, they get
negative.
right, like, they get assumed, they assume that I should be like a staunch anti-vaxxer, or I should be, maybe belonging to a certain system, like, oh, of course the rapture's about to happen. I'm like, dude, I don't stand by the pre-trib rapture. I just, like, what do you mean you don't stand by that? Like, it's like, even within this realm, I mean, I see it actually more in the religious realms, but most people don't think that it happens outside of the religious realms. It happens everywhere, but primarily, in my opinion, the biggest ones are actually within the religious realm, because we have all these, systems and all these different things, and it's kind of crazy.
It is, absolutely, and ultimately it really falls down to this very simple thing, which is ultimately everybody's susceptible to it, is called pride. So
no, absolutely, I get you.
So
let's so you have all these people, all these artists in different ways that are influencing you, and I think you mentioned in an interview on Omega Frequency that while you were in your youth, following these bands like Fall Out Boy, like playing with them and all those people before they were big, you were also listening to comedians like David Cross and like Patton Oswalt and things like that. And I think I remember you saying, I think I remember you saying that because of that, and people might not understand, at a very psychological level, like it influences you to believe certain things, because to this day, even people that are within the woke realm, sometimes I don't think realize that even like a comedian, especially, or something, like, it can really influence you towards something, positive, negative, and it really depends. If it's not for your maturity, it can definitely affect you, And, like, I don't know, the approach I have with my daughter.
When you're so young and susceptible, you know what I mean? Like, I was like college age, you know.
Right.
I mean, it was prime time for me to like have my worldview shaped.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean?
And well, like for example, the approach I have with my
yeah.
the approach.
I still think some of those guys are funny though.
Funny.
By the way, like I still like stand up, and I still can listen to it and discern for myself, like, and not agree with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, but like, so going back to the art thing. So right now, you said you're currently working on some stuff, and I believe you like when you play on your own, like your job that pays the bills.
Yeah.
Your the band is called what do you call yourself? It's what is it? Handsome Young Ladies.
Handsome Young Ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is funny. I've been wanting to ask you about like what's the deal with that? Where'd you get that name from?
Oh, so it's funny because coming from where I come from in the old podcasting, truther movement, like somebody would like listen to that name and be like, "What kind of agenda is he trying to push?"
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. I know someone who said that about your title.
I get people on the opposite side of the spectrum being like, "Dude, this is so dope!" Like, like I see what you're trying to do, and I'm like, "We're not trying to do anything. Like, it's just a name." Like, it's just so funny. It's like, oh my gosh, I see where like I used to go down the rabbit trail, and like now where it's like, oh God, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
I was trapped going down rabbit trails.
Yeah,
and But yeah, so here's what happened. This is just the short end truth of the story. Jesse Sprinkle, right before I went to move with him, New Year's, ready? This is another serendipitous thing, the way God speaks to Sam, right?
Okay.
So Jesse had to play a cover gig on New Year's Eve of going into 2017. Yes, 2017.
Okay.
And so I was like, "Hey, dude, I'll just drive you," because he only had like one car and he had to bring a drum set, and it was New Year's. And I was like, "Yeah, we'll hang out. Like, I'll just come to your gig." So he's playing with this really not awesome band. I'm not going to name names, but this band that just did like Southern rock and Every Rose Has Its Thorn and like country music and the stuff that like, sorry, it just basically ticked off a bunch of people that are listening, I'm sure.
Bret Michaels
that's
fans,
just not my thing. If that's your thing, cool, good for you. It's just not my thing. But it's also not Jesse's thing. And Jesse, who was being paid, like, kind of felt like he was selling his soul that night.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And so here we are on New Year's, and I was like, dude, we should start a cover band. We should start a band and make like just 3 of us, like minimize it, not 4, and we'll do songs that we like to play, put our own artistic spin on it, and go play places, and then like it'd be way more fun. He's like, you know what, that would be fun. That'd be a lot more fun. And so the ball drop, and so I cheers him, and I'm like, hey, 1 year from tonight, you and I, we're gonna be playing a cover gig together, and you're gonna make double what you made tonight. And here's what's funny: the guy that paid him from the band like gypped him like $50 or $25 of what he said too on top of it. So
okay.
But here's I'm gonna get to that. So here, a year later, that happened. Exactly what I just said happened.
Look at you little prophet.
So the next day though, from that point, so New Year's Day of 2017, I went and hung out with him and his family at this New Year's Day like party with a bunch of other families, and I'm like, my ex was out of town, so I had nothing to do. She took the kids to Illinois to visit her family, and I was like, well, I'm in New York and I don't have anybody. So, okay. So I hung out with him and his family, and we were chilling with the people that own this gym that we were at. It was like a gymnasium that you go work out at, and that's where the party was. And the wife of the couple was saying to Jesse, she goes, it's funny because like all my kids, which she had like 5, and all of the older ones, look like her husband, except for the younger one, who's a boy, looks just like me. And she says, every time that I upload a photo of my youngest son who looks just like me to Facebook, he's not even on Facebook, it tags his face as her. Like, that's how much they look like on the auto recognition.
Wow.
To which Jesse replies, That's just because you're such a handsome young lady. And I
Dude,
just,
this
ooh, that's the name. That's it. So that's
so funny,
literally,
dude.
I know. Jesse's hilarious. Like
Dude, no,
Jesse is amazing.
I think it's funny because everybody's like, okay, so is he trying to make us aware of how people identify of gender, or is he trying to make us like, what is agenda here? You know, and then it's just one of these stories.
I know.
You know,
Just please keep that in mind when you just assume things.
yeah, no, I mean,
So
we get that all the time. Like, we've gotten people. I've mentioned this multiple times already. We got some people that told us that we're possibly Luciferian, like shills or whatever, because I use the Prometheus fire theft radio thing, you know, and stealing fire, and I just only used it as an archetype, like him taking knowledge and giving it to the people, and that's kind of what we're doing. You know what I mean?
why not?
You know, and
It's kind of artistic of you.
yeah,
I think that's dope.
yeah. So that's the only reason I did that, and now I'm getting accused of being like, oh, don't you know that Prometheus is like Lucifer in the story, and and I'm like, oh my gosh, that has nothing to do with what I'm doing here. You know, like, you know. But
Careful, homies. Careful. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, G.
Yeah,
Come
no,
on.
indeed. So what, handsome young ladies, that's what you do for a job, you know? How does that work, man? What do you do?
So you ever heard of the band Me First and the Gimme Gimmes?
No, sir.
So they're from Southern California, and they are made up. They're like a super group, but they're a cover band. They were formed in like '96.
Mm-hmm.
It's got Fat Mike from NoFX. It's got Shiflet from Foo Fighters.
Wow.
I forget the other few guys. Bunch of Fat Records punk bands.
Okay.
Basically, all conjoined into this cover band that covers everything from John Denver and Celine Dion to R. Kelly and Hall & Oates to just you name it. Seriously, like it's embarrassing but amazing.
Wow.
And they put a punk rock spin on it, and they've been making full-length cover albums.
Were they one of the first to do that? Because I've heard of that so much now, like like pop to like screamo and all that stuff. You know, like that's the thing now. You know.
Oh yeah, they definitely pioneered it as far as like taking it to the point of making records like that and like continuously doing it.
Yeah.
Like they're like the template for handsome young ladies. Although we aren't punk rock, we are more like Jesse's from Seattle originally, so he was there for like the whole Nirvana, like Sunny D Real Estate like era, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so he comes from that scene of bands and stuff. So we have this like post grunge indie rock like. It's almost like that post grunge meets like the Braids and the Hey Mercedes and Jimmy Eat World's like somewhere in between, you know.
Nice.
Doing with like a Elvis Costello-y kind of like vocal, you know. I have more of that like croon like soul style of singing, Mike Patton kind of deal.
Ooh, Mike Patton. And I know who that is.
Ooh, yeah.
I like Mike Patton.
Yeah, he did. Mike Patton's
a lot of weird bands he
pretty
had.
much one of the most amazing singers ever.
Yeah, he's crazy. Like I actually bought like the weird albums. Like I think he was in Mr. Bungle, and then and then like Fantomas.
Animas and Love It and oh my gosh, there's just too many. Oh, and he was like the singer on that Dillinger Escape Plan EP. Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so well, I just kind of think Incubus is basically like a poor man's Faith No More, but that's just my opinion.
Plus, it's a spiritual entity,
no,
so
I actually do like Incubus, but I just think that they kind of like you can totally tell like they jacked like Faith No More hard, which is dope. Yeah. It's not a bad thing. We all jack somebody, right? We all take influence from other people, so none of us is totally authentic. You know?
Yeah.
But that being said, yeah, I mean, our band, though, back on that tip, like, yeah, we made a cover record this year. We just released it in May, actually, on vinyl and CD, and it's on Spotify. It's called We Got It Covered. And we covered everything from Earth, Wind, and Fire and Tears for Fears to Ace of Base and the Cardigans. Like, it was just this wild ride. We did Sade, The Police, but we put our own indie rock kind of spin on it, and I think it's really fun. We've done a few music videos. We got 2 more coming out this year. And then I do a ton. Like my bread and butter is literally solo gigs. Like I play the winery and brewery circuit in the Finger Lakes region of New
Yeah,
York.
I saw you released your dates that you're playing. I'm like, dude, he's booked for all of September. It's crazy. He's busy.
Dude, I'm solo like most of the time. I do play a lot of like band festivals and weddings and stuff like that. Those are great. But yeah, the band doesn't pay the bills. It's mainly like acoustic looping gigs and like stuff. Like today I'm playing a wedding after I get off this with you.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, I love it, dude. God has made my life so amazing. Like
I'm just thinking of Adam Sandler right now, the wedding singer.
So funny. That was like kind of a therapeutic movie for me when I was like starting this too. But yeah, no. So I do that, right? And I love it, and I'm very passionate about it, right?
Right.
And it's fun to do, but it's also very exhausting. And like my voice, I mean, I came from the original band scene, you know, where I was playing like an hour max, you know, like 40-minute sets, hour set max, usually half-hour sets when you're the opener, like
right.
You're opening for these bigger bands at the Metro, and you get like your half-hour slot.
Right.
But yeah, so like I'm singing 3 hours, and most of the time I don't even take a break.
Wow,
like,
dude.
And I do that intentionally. I couldn't do that at the beginning, but I've built my stamina up so much that I can. And it's like, all right, well, I could take a 15-minute break. Occasionally I'll take like a 15-minute break at like the midway point. But everybody else breaks around me. I found that like it gives me this value. We know Sam's not going to take a break typically. And Sam plays songs that people don't play at bars. Like I don't play like Every Rose Has Its Thorn. I don't play like all this like hair metal.
What do you have against that song, bro?
I play soul music and pop music and guilty pleasure, like just listener music that like you think you don't like it, and then you hear me do it, and you're like, I kind of like his spin on it.
I like it.
It could just, even if I don't love it, like I like that somebody's doing something different with it, which brings the art into it.
Let's do this.
You know
Let's
what I mean?
do this. What's a song that you would like people to hear right now from your handsome young ladies that you think is cool? Like this is legit.
That record?
Yeah.
Well, we're about to release a music video for September by Earth, Wind and Fire.
Okay.
But I think my favorite cover on the album is our Sade cover of Smooth Operator. I just think it's so unique.
Okay.
The way we do it.
How about we play a little piece of it?
All right, you go ahead and play a little piece of that.
All right, play the Sade one. You said that one, right? Which
Sorry,
one?
my kids are high-fiving me right now.
Nice. All right, right before we play one of your songs, you said the Sade one, right? What's it called again?
Smooth Operator.
Smooth Operator. All right, put a little piece of Sam Swanson's Smooth Operator.
City lights and business nights. When you require streetcar desire for higher heights. No place for beginners or sensitive hearts. When sentiment is left to chance. No place to be ending, but somewhere to start. No need to ask, he's a smooth operator. Smooth operator. Smooth operator. Smooth operator.
Okay. What do you got to say about yourself? Just play. What
do I gotta say about myself?
No, first of all, how do you come up with the spin? This is what I want to ask, because every time someone does like a new spin on something, I mean, okay, so I don't know if you listen to random channels on Spotify or whatever, but I like to listen to people's interpretation of other people's music. That I like that, you know. And there's this like little thing called indie chill, and they basically, you know, make very famous songs into like these indie, you know, ambient kind of chill music, and they do really well. I've always wondered, how do you decide, like, how do you come up with this spin? Like, how do you do that? Like, what are you thinking? What's the process, you know?
I don't really I don't really try to do it because for me, trying to cover a song normal is painful. Um, like it's my go-to. It's like I'm an artist. I've already developed like the sound of my voice and my style of playing guitar and writing songs and harmonizing and just I have my own thing that I'm always continually like working on that craft, and building upon it. And so for me, it's like it actually is very easy. It's easier for me to do what I do than it is to do the other. I think for me to put myself in the box of just, all right, I'm gonna play Wonderwall just this exact same way as the Gallagher Bros. Like that's not gonna like, and I purposely pick songs that aren't like meat and potatoes chords most of the time. Like I pick songs with like sevenths and ninths and more jazzy progressions.
Ooh, look at
like
you. Yeah, no, keep me on that same, like even like me. I just became the worship leader for the church, right? I'm not really great with instruments other than piano, but I play the guitar very little. But keep me on that G7th repetition. Don't give me no complicated. You know what I mean? Because if not, I can't play anything else. But that's crazy. Yeah, that's cool, man. I'm glad that you challenge yourself.
Yeah. Well, and it is challenging, but it's also like, honestly, man, my whole background, the first kind of music I ever got into in my entire life was R&B and soul.
Really?
And then hip hop. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like the first CD I owned, like, well, technically I had some Christian music before this, but like the first one that I always say in interviews, like I had some like a few Christian records because my parents had Christian music, but like the first one that I got to like search out on my own was I got the Bodyguard soundtrack, Whitney Houston. So I mean, it's like that's like if that's any indication, like there's so many covers on that record with their own spin, and not to mention just like good songs, like so like I just love that kind of music, and I love those colors that they add to those songs and those structures, and I feel like a lot of rock music just kind of stays in the box, and there's not many records that have really challenged that. I think like bands like Chicago, Earth, Wind and Fire, Steely Dan's a great example. Although a lot of people find them kind of boring, I like them.
Yeah.
But with like being more poppy about your like intentionality of writing songs, there's not a lot of bands that like, hey, I'm going full-fledged jazz chords and like rocking it out. And so like the only record I've ever heard that like kind of did that, which was a total major label flop, and I think it has a lot to do with the dude's voice and like just the timing and like the major labels like kind of all like what do you call that, like where they merging. Like DreamWorks Records back in 2003 released an album by Saves the Day called In Reverie. And that is still to this day one of my favorite records ever. And it's all jazz chords, like mainly. And it's just beautiful. It's just so gorgeous. It's produced by Rob Schnapp, who produced Beck and like Elliott Smith, and it's an out the box like adventure of a record, and it's very like existential too, and kind of new agey, but it's a very cool record.
Yeah. As far as music, man, I mean, if you were to find, I used to say this a lot when I had an iPod, you know what I mean? But like, if you were to find my iPod and go through it, like you wouldn't be able to tell what type of person like I am. Like, is he Mexican? Is he white? Like, what? You know what I mean? Because I was like, I listened to so much like rap, hip hop, country, like everything, like literally everything. I had random, I had German polka music in my iPod. You know what I mean? Like I had so much stuff, and my biggest thing was I don't know, I guess I listened to rock more than anything, but like I think if it wasn't for them being such conjurers and anti-God, I'm a big Tool fan, I like Tool, but I just, they get really weird, and so
they get really weird. They're a great band.
Yeah, and I've always found it interesting, and I don't know if they continue to do this, but they do all the music first, like the drums,
Yeah.
the guitar,
Yeah.
everything, and like the bass, everything that's first, and then Maynard comes in and then writes on top of that, like he writes his lyrics.
That's how
you know.
that's how Nirvana was too.
Yeah.
And that's how Sublime was too, and that's how I am too. Like I'm very much that way. Sometimes as I'm writing like the chords, like the melody comes.
Yeah.
But I always take my time on the music first, and that's just how I am.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I'm starting to find that with like song titles and topics, sometimes it's really cool to have like a preconceived idea of what you're going to write the song about before you write the lyrics. Like, and it really adds another dimension. And like the songs that I'm writing now are very, very something that I've never done before. They're really potent. Like, and I honestly, I'm going to tell you something. Because now we're like switching topics, because like now this is not Handsome Young Ladies. I'm in this other band called Slave to Servant,
Right.
And I kind of founded the project through doing a score for Leonard Ulrich's as of yet to come out second film. I say that kind of because he paid me to do that soundtrack. It was my first like paid gig, which was really cool. He paid me a couple grand to like compose the score. Wow. And then he asked me to write an original piece, and that actually is what got me back into doing music after my like hiatus of years of not playing music. And he gave me a few verses of scripture that he wanted me to like kind of like base it off of and then do my own thing with, and I was like, cool. So then I got Gons to play guitar on it, and then Gons was kind of supposed to be part of this whole project, but he just, he had a kid and he's got to do his life, you know what I mean? Right, so yeah. We talked about it. He's played on a few of the songs that are coming out right now. But I kind of have a whole new like studio band that I'm working with, and I'll probably have a totally different touring band. So, that all being said, yeah, like I've got this band called Slave to Servant, and I just have this sense I'm kind of in the right place talking to you right now about it, because I don't know if I'm going to make any friends. Because I feel like, well, it's not a Christian record, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's a piece of art. So like, but those themes are there. I mean, those themes, like, if you know me, like I have this belief in God, and that like there's obviously like huge like nods. You know what I mean? Half the record is very, very spiritual, and then the other half of the record is very much emotional and deals with what I've gone through the last like 3 years of my life. And so it's like this fire and water kind of, it's really crazy thing. But I don't feel like, just much like going back to Dave Chappelle, I kind of feel like some of the things I'm saying are really potent.
Yeah.
And I'm not really, I don't know, man. I feel like I just kind of put, I don't, if anybody feels this way, like it's a journey of a record. The title of the record is called Escape Babylon. And
I like that.
It is, it's going to be, yeah, I can hardly wait to show you some stuff. But I have a vision for it. It is some of the songs, I'm not gonna lie, man, I even dropped the F-bomb in a song, whatever. So whatever. It is what it is. You know what? It's art, and I'm not gonna, if you're not into that, that's totally fine. Like, I don't consider the F word to be like my identity either. I just use it in explaining how painful something felt to me.
Right. No, I mean,
and so
okay,
I think it's all context too. It's how you use the word. You know what I mean?
No,
so,
indeed. And before we leave today, like I do want to play one of the songs, if you'll allow me to, of course. And
absolutely, man. You play whatever you want to play. Go for it.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna play the one that I've kind of already promoted on the Instagram page, just because I liked it so much. And
well, hey, you know what? That song is actually being re-recorded for the album right now as a full band song, so that's actually relevant. That will be on the record.
Oh, sweet. So cool. So I'll do that. I'll put that one on there. Just I really I just like it. I'm like, yeah, I really like it. And one of the things we talk about a lot throughout the show is Christian art, and I think we didn't make friends on our perspective on it, because we feel that a lot of Christian art lacks just that, the art, and when we listen, like, I don't know, maybe when you're a new Christian, or when you're maybe a
censorship.
Yeah. Like, I don't like movies that are like incredibly preachy. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard for me to watch like a Christian movie, and say, "Oh, that's really good. That's really good." And I'm like, "It's okay." Like, I don't know. It's always been difficult for me, And even like, like the church I go to now, they play pretty contemporary Christian music, and I mean, I enjoy it. I like it, but I'm like not the biggest fan of modern day Christian music. But at the same time, I'm like, all right, I'm not. This isn't my church. I'm gonna play whatever they required me to play. And so, but my point is that the art, like the art in it of itself, like in so much Christian art is. I think if you come in with it like just trying to be preachy, trying to be like real, like agenda pushing when it comes to like your faith, you tend not to focus on the art itself, and it just kind of becomes like, ugh, that's just hard to see, hard to watch, hard to listen to, whatever it may be, and I was having these same thoughts even when it comes down to making things. Like, let's say you're a Christian and you're a shoemaker, and I saw this post the other day from a guy we had on the show, Theology with Feet, and he put a post, and it was very true. Someone I'm paraphrasing a quote, but if you're a shoemaker, it doesn't make you a Christian shoemaker if you just put a cross on the shoe. It makes you
right.
What makes you like a godly shoemaker is if you make a quality shoe, like if you do your best
absolutely
to make that shoe, you know what I mean? And so that applies, I think, in every aspect that we do. Like, a lot of the times, I've had some bad experiences with even like quote unquote Christian construction workers, and then they have, the whole cross and the Jesus fish and the David star and all this stuff, which I have a problem with the David star, but we'll talk about that on another show. But and I'm like, okay, but they were like horrible at the job, and I'm like, and I'm like, that's how you're representing God in a sense, maybe keep that to yourself if you're not good at your job. I don't know. Maybe that's mean to say, but like, I don't know, man. It's just crazy to me. Like, quality speaks louder than anything that you can, say that you are.
Hey, Two things on that tip, real quick.
Yeah.
And one of them is a YouTube video that I want you to play for everybody, if you can.
Okay.
And I want you to look up Billy Corgan on Christian rock. It's 1 minute and 14 seconds. It's by Sean Curry, is the YouTube channel.
Okay.
And that I watched that video years ago when I was doing Hallelujah, and it really inspired me and got me to think a little. It actually resonated with me pretty much where I was at, and I totally see eye to eye pretty much everything he says. But one thing he says in that interview is that he sees the forefront of music, like the next like frontier topically is going to be God. And I think that that's really funny because that's where I'm at. Like, I'm talking about God. I'm also talking about life. I'm also talking about emotional warfare. I'm also talking about a lot of different things. But I think that discussion, where it used to be like a segregated discussion, is now actually more an accepting discussion than we thought it was, or that it maybe personally was before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are all in these camps like, oh, we can't talk about God. People will like ostracize us. It's like, no, maybe that's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
And so anyway, he talks about that in that interview. It's really a good interview. And then he also insults you too, which is funny. But also I wanted to quote in regard to what you said about the shoemaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you put a cross on a shoe, right?
Mm.
So have you ever heard of the band Say Anything?
Yes.
So I'm a pretty big fan of them. They're pretty potent. Like, Max Bemis is a very potent lyricist, and definitely not a believer or not a Christian, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, he has a Jewish background, but he's definitely not of any. I don't believe he's any sort of like set religious, kind outlook or whatever.
Yeah.
Although I don't want to speak for him, you know what I mean? But I'm not here to judge. But he has this song called "Fed to Death" on the third Say Anything full length, and I don't know if you ever heard. Have you ever heard that song?
No, I'm looking at the albums right now. Let me see, which one is it?
It's from Say Anything, the self-titled.
Oh, the self-titled. Yeah, okay.
But it's a really short song, really short. But I want to just read the lyrics because I think it resonates with what you just said.
Okay.
And he starts this out. It starts off. He's very potent in his lyricism. But when he gets to the second verse, you'll see what I'm talking about. So he says, "There was a man from Allentown who fed his son to death. He calmly watched him gorge himself until his final breath. And there he stood, surprised and shocked above his tiny frame. He said, 'I bear no blame for this. I only share his name.'" And then the second verse, he says, "There was a man from Nazareth. The fools at war pervert. They forged an image of his flesh and brand on mugs and T-shirts. They say one day he'll spring to life to smile and clear your name. So nail yourself up on the cross and hang your head in shame. Forever. This is forever." Now, obviously, he's of a totally different worldview than me, and I'm not here to judge him or whatever. That's his art. But what he said in reference to what you're talking about, that shoemaker, in fact, I would argue that the people that are Christian shoemakers in some regards are very much perverting things. And I think that there's room, and this is where I'm getting into you see a band like Rage Against the Machine, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's Rage Against the Machine. They had this and I don't agree with everything they say, and I certainly don't politically necessarily get on board with them. I do agree with their use of freedom of speech, and I do agree with some stances that they've taken over the years, and I agree with their musical style. I think they're one of the dopest bands that I've ever heard. And but that being said, with what I'm trying to do, and this may come off a little corny or weird, but this band that I'm trying to do with Slave to Servant is, to me, like Love Against the Machine. It's like Agape Against the Machine. You know what I mean?
That is,
and that's my new approach.
I've never thought of that way. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is it's flooding me with thoughts right now. Just you saying Love Against the Machine, it's flooding me with all these ideas of oh yeah, I guess we are supposed to do what Jesus called us to do when it comes to all.
Yeah, I guess so.
Just the one phrase is making me think of all the things that I feel I could definitely show love instead of anything else, and that I'm not right now. Just right now, I'm already thinking of so many things, Whew.
Absolutely.
So honestly, you saying that, I'm in my post already. I was already I'm excited. I think I even said album's coming 9/13, but that wasn't it. It was your single that's dropping, right?
Yeah, so real quick on that tip, I have singles coming out every month for the next year, and videos.
Oh, I see. Okay, cool.
And these are all exclusive non-album songs. A lot of them, the first bunch are all acoustic. 2 of which will be re-recorded and put on the album. Then there's a ton of other just singles. There's going to be acoustic versions, band versions. There's some cover songs. And then hopefully by summer, I can get this thing out. I hope. We'll see.
All right.
We'll see what God wants. You know what I mean?
We'll see.
And if it takes longer, cool. You know what? I'm cool with that too, because it'll be all in His timing. You know what I mean?
You really are not an anxious guy. That's good. Well, before we land this plane, is there anything that you maybe wanted to say that we didn't get to? Anything you want to just kind of I don't know, just get off your chest? I like to take that from Joyce Spiracy Theory.
I just want to thank you for doing what you're doing, because I remember doing this, and I know how much work it takes to do a podcast. And people don't realize that. It does take work. And especially when you're interviewing researchers. This was probably a nice we're kind of taking a coffee break, just having fun with Sam here.
Right.
But when you're plotting out those questions, I remember plotting out questions for Carl Teichgrib, getting all in the green movement or whatever, you know. Or eugenics with Andrew Hoffman or whatever. When you're doing that, that's a lot of work, and you're not getting paid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a labor of love. it's a labor of love anyway, like no matter what kind of podcast you're doing. It doesn't have to be about these topics, but the fact that you're sharing information, and I love that, like now that I know a little bit more about you, like through getting to know you and even during this conversation, like I mad respect to you for taking your time to heal through whatever you went through. And it sounds like we have a very similar situation, you know what I mean? In some ways, and, background wise. And I applaud you, like as a brother, you know what I mean? Just like to know that there's another brother out there that kind of did this, Derek Gilbert went through kind of a similar situation.
Oh, really?
And he, actually I went to this, before I went to see Gons, I went on my road trip and I went to Skywatch and I got to meet the Gilberts. And actually shout out to the Gilberts because they took me into their home, gave me a glass of wine, watched some TV, hung out, got to go to the Skywatch studios. I got to pick up a free David Flynn book that was scratch and dent model.
Nice.
It was dope. But no, Derek Gilbert got on the phone with me and talked to me a few times aside from that. And I really appreciate him through that too, because I know he took his time, and he met Sharon, and obviously look how that worked out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now it's like, it's crazy. I didn't know that neither. I don't know. I know of Derek. I know through Canary Cry and his work with his books, because I'm recently gonna be going through his books. That were some good research there, and but no, thank you for you know better than most. It definitely isn't easy to do a podcast. Things start running smooth once you get the hang of it, but it's still not an easy thing. Once I tell people like what I got to do, it's like, oh dang, like that's a lot of time,
Well, to go a little bit full circle on it, like I'm gonna say this. I think me doing that podcast, even though I felt it was a calling, I put a lot of time into that podcast, and I think that definitely was not the main factor, but definitely a contributing factor to the stress and deterioration of my marriage.
Oh yeah.
So, not to mention like my paradigm shift, like all the stuff I went through before. You know what I mean? That's heavy on marriages too, and it's not easy, I mean, we're all going through all this trying to figure life out, you know what I mean? And I was angry at God for a while, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I was like, why did I go through this, God? Why did I do this? Why did I do that? Why, and I'm going to tell you something else, like, and this is kind of personal, like, and I don't want to like defame, my ex or anything, but like, in hindsight, the God freed me of a situation that obviously I was supposed to be freed of. And ultimately, when I say that the title of this album is Escape Babylon, and it was Escape Babylon, when I was, like ultimately from a spiritual perspective and from a geopolitical perspective and all the other things that you talk about on this podcast, it also is kind of like Babylon was my marriage in a lot of ways. So that's the other, I ended up scrapping half of this record, which was all spiritual, and replacing it with like the emotional and like dealing with it, because the guy who does my music videos, his dad is a rabbi, and he actually married my sister and her husband recently. But he said to me, he's like, I think you should write an album called Divorce, tentatively, to deal with your pain. And so I started doing that, and then I realized, God, this could probably just fit right in, and this could be half of the record. You know what I mean? So there's a song I wrote for my daughter. It's a ballad, and it's probably the greatest song I've ever written. And I wouldn't be surprised if people really dig on that song. And it's called Lucy May.
Nice.
And it would be ironic if something were to happen where that song got somehow played and people heard it and it resonated, when that song, like, it took all that pain to get here. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, gosh, dude, like, just listening to this, I'm getting some chills right now. I really do, because I like the fact, is going back to what we were talking about earlier, that you're putting like real emotion, real pain, real experience into your art form, which is incredibly necessary to make good music. Because you can tell, like, I cannot stand listening to just like cookie cutter, if that's the correct word, kind of pop music where it just comes out. They're just crapping it out. Like, all right, same kind of notes, same singing, same kind of story. It's just garbage. There's a lot of that. And hearing the song, I could just tell. Even the song that we're gonna play right now, it's just very personal. Like, there's a line in there that I really like, talking about it takes a lot of guts to be before your maker, and something like that. I might be getting it wrong. But just like the whole thing of you talking about how difficult it was to even like be real with God. You know what I mean? It's just like, man, this is a hard step. This is difficult. It's not easy to be real with yourself and before God, And just listening to it, like, you could just tell that there's a story behind it. And right now, I think you're telling that story. So if I think people listen to the podcast and then listen to your singles you're going to be dropping, they're really going to understand where you're coming from. So I'm glad we did this episode, man.
Yeah, man. Well, and I just want to say, like, just to add a little bit more to that song that I'm writing for my daughter, it sounds like it's a love song when it starts off, and I start off by saying, "What's in a name? Is it the sound or the soul that gets the fame? If you're hearing me right, could I just stay tonight? One last sweet serenade, so I sleep." And it sounds like it's a love song, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it sounds, and then I say the chorus is Lucy May, and that's my daughter's. I named my daughter, I named my son, but I named her Lucy May. And you would think that I'm talking to some girl, like, can I just stay tonight? No, like, can I just stay tonight? One more, can I just stay one more night in this house as a family? Can you just stay one more night at my house, because now we're like separated. You know what I mean? Right. Like that. And so, I think this is going to really resonate with people. I really do. And to add to what you said about art, Lauryn Hill said in that double disc that I mentioned, the MTV Unplugged, she said, people want to get in these hip hop videos and look all hard, and they want to wear these dreads and play this reggae music or whatever, and they got that image and they got that style, but the content isn't there, because you don't know the years of pain that went into Bob Marley's life.
Right.
You don't know the years that went into that to make that content. You can't get that without going through it. And I feel like when I set out to write this record, I was a different person, different man, and I was trying to write this record about selflessness, about love, about turning the other cheek, and I was forced literally to do that experiment on myself. Can you love the person that you thought loved you? Like, can you love the person that doesn't love you anymore? Like, because that's what I had to do. And I think a lot of people have to do that. You probably had to do that.
That's
I mean?
Funny. No, yes, I was thinking of that, because it was a process, but I had to, and I thank God that I'm there again. But obviously it's a different kind of love, but you let all the bitterness go, all the other things go, to learn to just love this person as the mother of your child, and furthermore, of course, as a believer as well, because sometimes our personal emotions get involved and we can't even do what we're supposed to do as believers, and so
you get bitter or you get better, you know what I mean?
Nice.
And like, just to tie that in, like, to the faith piece, like, you can use that to strengthen your faith. I use that in conversations, man, with people all the time, because I'm playing gigs out at these pubs and these brew pubs and these wherever, people are mostly drinking when I'm playing music, and I'm sober just playing. I don't drink and sing. I just can't mix the two,
Right.
So these people are doing their thing, but it offers for such a great, like, conversation here and there. Like, so every now and then you get that vulnerable human being that you don't know, because, like, you don't know what the person next to you is going through. Like, had I walked into Walmart after that conversation with that text from Nathan, and I went into Walmart and I literally saw a wine T-shirt, like, because we're in this, like, wine country here, like all the lakes, and they had this T-shirt and it said, "We'll trade spouse or we'll trade husband for wine." Like, and I'm going through this, and I'm bawling my eyes out even further at a joke of a I can laugh at it now, you know, but like, you don't literally right now. Are you sitting on a bus right now? Is somebody sitting next to you? Are you in church? Are you in class? Where are you? Do you know you don't know what somebody's thinking and going through. They could be like literally about to end it. You don't even know.
Right. And
it's so important to keep that in mind with everything that we do in life. And that being said, like the faith piece is like people will be like, oh, that's stupid. I don't believe in God. Well, whatever. That's your prerogative. But you'll believe in your spouse that could leave you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like you believe they love you. You believe so thoroughly that they love you, but you don't. You're not gonna like. What about this whole metaphysical realm?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what about this whole other thing? Think about it. You know, it's bigger. It's a lot bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, man. There's a lot to think about, dude. Definitely. And
sorry, dude.
No.
Didn't mean to get heavy on you. It just
it
just comes out.
That's actually really, that's really good. No, that's fine. We do that a lot. The show is like nice and funny, and then all of a sudden, like, damn, it's deep. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what we do. So yeah, that happens all the time. Man. So that's fine.
I won't keep you any longer, man. I appreciate the conversation, and perhaps we'll do it again sometime on the flip side of this.
Indeed. Well, stick with me right now, Sam. I'm gonna play these folks the Yeshua song acoustic single that you've dropped from Slave to Servant. Check it out, folks.